Welcome to the Matt Phillips Podcast. I am Matt Phillips, your sales leadership coach, mental toughness expert, and founder of Matt Phillips Coaching. We help sales managers and leaders make more money, save time, and become kick-ass leaders of their sales teams. And that's what we're here to talk about on this podcast. We are here to give you the tools and tactics to build a well-oiled sales machine and teach you the mental toughness skills so you can show up confident, focused, emotionally in control, and ready to energize your team. It's time to talk sales leadership and mental toughness. Let's get into today's episode. Well, welcome to today's podcast. It is Matt, and I have the distinct pleasure to introduce you to not just one, but to two very special guests today on the podcast. I get to introduce you here in a minute to Jenni Finley and Jen Peterson. Now, I was joking with the Jens right before this that, oh my gosh, this is going to be confusing. So what we've decided to do is Jenni Finley goes by Jenni, and then Jenni Peterson will go by Jen. So, hey, this is going to be simple, right? So you're going to hear me in the podcast address Jen and Jenni, and you'll know who I'm talking about. But listen, I've been wanting to get these two individuals on the podcast for quite some time. And as some of you know, I had the opportunity to join a mastermind about a year and a couple months ago. And it's with this gentleman named James Wedmore. And it's about 30 business owners, and we get together 3 trips per year and deep dive into our businesses and our mindset and all these different things. And I knew, a year and 3 months ago that I had to be part of this, right? To grow my business, to help me think differently. And that's what this podcast is all about, right? Of how do we think differently as leaders? Well, as part of that mastermind, I met both Jenni and Jen. And as soon as I met them and heard about their background and all the stories that we were sharing with each other, I went up to them and I said, will you please be on my podcast? And I don't think they paused for half a second, both like, yes, let's be on it. So excited to get to interview these individuals and hear stories from their very unique past. In our time together, I'll read through their bios here in a little bit, but we get to talk about leadership from multiple levels, right? We dive into, bigger corporations like Lululemon, where they both worked, and Tesla. And then we transition it to James's business, right? James, both Jen and Jenni work for James Wedmore. And it's such a unique perspective going from huge conglomerates to a very successful, but smaller as far as number of people business. And it's incredible the impact that they've been able to make on both fronts. And we can learn from that. We can grow from that. And so on today's podcast, we're diving into everything leadership and building teams and getting the most out of people. We're even talking intuition, kind of a key component to leadership. And both of these women have just very unique perspectives on how to get the most out of those around us. So I hope you're as excited as I am. I haven't even read through their bios yet, but let me give you a little bit of flavor of them before I welcome them to the show. So first of all, Jenni Finley. She is a performance and leadership coach and co-host of the Mind Your Business podcast alongside her partner, James Wedmore. She is the growth team manager for Team Wedmore and head coach for James's Performance Mastermind, and program director for the Indispensable Leadership Academy, training and supporting managers and team leads in the digital entrepreneurial space. It's such a cool business. Previous to joining Team Wedmore, Jenni spent 12 years at Lululemon Athletica as the internal leadership coach and manager, leading the performance of multi-million-dollar retail business and reliably delivering results in teamwork and leadership. Jenni is trained in multiple coaching methodologies, including NLP, Coactive Training Institute, and currently studying at the Robbins-Medanes training. Something actually my wife has taken as well, that Robbins-Medanes training. She holds 2 certifications in NLP, including one from the founder of NLP, Dr. Richard Bandler. She has 600 HR plus certified training in yogic philosophy, right? Asana, mindfulness and meditation, and is a former yoga teacher for Equinox. And again, I could go on, but this is what James says about her. Says since 2008, James has referred to her, as Team Wedmore's secret weapon. That is Jenni Finley, and I can again go on and on. Now, let me talk about Jen Peterson for a moment. She lives in Fort Worth, Texas, with her husband, Aaron, and beloved rescue dog, Penelope. She's originally from Long Island, New York, and grew up a competitive dancing, cheerleading, as well as attending Hofstra University and graduating with a BBA in business entrepreneurship with a concentration in legal studies. Jen started her career in 2013 at Lululemon and was able to open and manage one of the highest grossing stores in the tri-state area. Lead, quote, Here to Be, end quote, which is a Lululemon community program offering grants to nonprofits supporting at-risk communities, and supported United We a Long Island yoga nonprofit. I probably butchered that last I'm going to go with but received an annual $20,000 grant from Lululemon. Jen relocated to Texas in 2017 and transitioned to a career at Tesla. She began in a leadership development role responsible for training and developing store leaders to support their teams in driving measurable results in sales and delivery operations. She was promoted into 5 different leadership roles during her 5-year tenure, notably piloting and creating the role of the general manager, and was responsible for sales, delivery, and service operations for Northwest Texas. She was also awarded the Lone Star Leadership Award for her support in peer growth and operational innovation in Texas. She will soon celebrate her 1-year anniversary on Team Wedmore and is, as she describes it, living a life beyond her wildest dreams. As I said before, these 2 women will provide a just unique perspective on leadership, building high-performing teams, and creating a life that you want to create. And that's why I'm so excited to dive into this podcast today. So without further ado, please meet Jenni Finley and Jen Peterson. So Jen and Jenni, so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for taking your time today with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is exciting. And I gave a little context in the intro, right? But last time we were at the mastermind together, I walked up to both of you and said, will you please be on my podcast to talk leadership, just because of your fascinating backgrounds from the corporate world to a just growing company. And thank goodness you both said yes. So thank you again for this. This is
absolutely
awesome.
Honored and delighted, Matt.
This is great. Well, I want to start us off with a question that I like to start all of my podcasts with, and any answer is a good answer. I'm really curious to see what you all come up with for this one. But who is the best leader that you've ever had, and how did he or she influence how you lead today? I don't know which one of you wants to start today.
You tell me, Jenni. Do you want me to go first? Or do you want?
Yeah, you go. Go.
Okay, cool. When I think of the most influential leader that I've gotten to work with, I think of my boss. One of my bosses at Tesla. His name is Blake. Incredible guy. I think we both came on around the same time, and a lot of things changed, day after day at Tesla, really challenging problems that we were facing on a pretty consistent basis. And what I loved and respected most about him is just his positive attitude. We could be being asked to do the craziest thing, and he always would put a positive spin on it. He was also always available. You could call him at 6 a.m., 9 p.m. You could ask him about work. You could ask him about personal. And he was always there in the trenches. What I also loved about him is he was always very candid. So whether, you were going to receive feedback to congratulate you on a job well done, or just really be honest about things that you needed to improve, you could count on him for both. And then we can co-create a plan to, put you in the right direction if you needed some support. So by far, and I always made sure to acknowledge him too, that he was not only the most instrumental leader I had at Tesla, and a huge proponent for me to move up, in different roles, but probably the best leader I've ever had.
So great. And I love it. I'm just taking notes as you're talking too, right? Just about like the candidness of it, the positivity in the trenches with you, right? Available.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are words that we hear as leaders that sometimes can be a little cliche or be like, sometimes it's too positive, but I think they're such powerful things that a lot of people remember and want to work for people like that.
Absolutely. He was someone who, like, to your point too, cliche, but he walked the walk, talked the talk. Like what he said he was going to do, he did it, and he did it with flying colors every single time. And that made a huge difference.
Yes. I love that. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, for sure.
Great one. Jenni, who's the best leader you've
Okay. It's so hard to choose one because I do feel like I've had very formative leaders come into my life at different chapters in my life. The first person that came to mind who we've interviewed on James and I's podcast, the Mind Your Business podcast, is my volleyball coach from high school.
Yep.
And he was the first person that popped into my head. His name is Michael Kane. He's, I think at this point, the most winning high school volleyball coach in Texas history. He's well known in the Texas volleyball community. When I met him, I was a freshman in high school who did not have much natural ability in volleyball, had an underhand serve, and had only played 1 or 2 years of volleyball ever, and was, too short, too skinny, too scrawny, didn't know how to play. And he came into my high school as like the person that people whisper about in the gym. Like we just got this new coach and he says we're going to win a state championship. And I went home and told my dad, I want to be on the volleyball team. I want to be the captain of a state championship volleyball team. And I think the combination of him and my dad pushed me to be the best possible player I could have become, probably beyond my actual physical capacity, honestly. Like I had a doctor tell me when I stopped playing volleyball, physically, you cannot sustain this. You're not built for this. You've got to have surgery or you have to stop. Like I just don't have the build for that type of game. And
right.
What was so neat about Coach Kane as a leader, and still is, he has a very quiet leadership. He's a very strong personality when you meet him. He has a military background and he's very stoic. So he carries with him this like strength, but he's not the loudest person in the room ever. He's more the one that's like standing back and watching, with his arms crossed, and you can see that he's noticing everything, but he's not speaking. And when I told him that I wanted to play for him on his team, he was always very clear and upfront with me what his expectations were, what he needed to see from me. And he never told me that's impossible, but he established these really clear standards of like, this is what it takes to play on my squad. And then throughout my volleyball career, kept raising the bar for me. I went from being on the freshman bench to being on the varsity bench in 1 year because him and my dad not together, not them in cahoots together, but my dad supporting me and then the coach supporting me. It was like, well, now there's no off season. Now you have to come back with this skill set. You got to come back with this mindset. You got to come back with this. I had to lift weights and actually gain weight to like sustain that level of athleticism.
Yep.
And throughout my volleyball career, I remember him putting different challenges in front of me. Like when I wanted to be the team captain, he came to me one year, and in years prior, he had chosen the captain based on who he thought exemplified the best leadership for the team. And he came to me the year before my senior year, and he said, I know next year is your senior year. And I know usually I choose the captain, but I'm going to change the way I'm doing things. I want the team to elect their own leader. So if you want it, you got to earn it from them. And I thought, one more hoop, like, man, but aren't they just going to pick the best player on the team? And he was like, not necessarily. You show them you're their leader. And so then I went to work with being the most mentally strong on the team. And then that moment where the team, we all voted, and he's reading off the names, and he's like, your two captains are Jennifer and Paige. And when I got chosen, I thought, man, that was such a gift that he gave me, with like still believing in me, but raising the bar again. And he was always that way as a coach. It was like, you want this? Here's what it's going to take. Like, I remember I went to him and we had just lost our setter the year before my senior year. And we had gotten to the state play, like, I think the semifinals or the quarterfinals, and then we had lost, and it was devastating. And it was like, it's my senior year. We are winning state this year, and we had lost our star setter. And I went to him and I said, we got to have a setter. I could learn to set. I said, the team needs, the girls had come to me and said, we need you on the court with us to keep us focused. When you go off the court, we start losing points because no one's there to glue us together mentally. So I went to him and I was like, I can't come off the court. And he was like, then you have to learn to set, because I got to rotate you out. So if you're not the setter, I have to pull you. And I go, okay, what do you need me to do in order to be the setter? And he's like, you're going to have to be better than the sub setter that I have right now. The one that's like training right now, you got to come in and kick her ass. And if you want to play in the front row, you're going to have to match the vertical of our 6'3" blocker. And I'm 5'5". So he's like, you're vertical. You're going to have to jump out of the gym, because when you jump up, I better see your hands in line with her hands. And I went, okay. And so he told me like how to train. He told me what to do, but I had to get to work and do it. And he held the whole team to that standard. Like, I remember one time we were running those drills on the baseline where you're running wind sprints, horses, where it's like, touch, go back, go further, go back. Oh my gosh, nightmares about those.
Flashbacks of nightmares right now, but yeah, keep going. Yes,
yeah. But I was small and I was fast. So that was like my forte on the team. And we've got these other girls that are like 5'10" to 6 foot tall. So their legs are 3 times longer than mine, but they're not as quick as me. So when we were finally running horses, I was like, yes, this is my time to shine. And I remember I beat the entire team, and he goes, Jennifer, good job. The rest of you, somebody catch Jennifer. And it was like such a neat moment in leadership, because it was like he could recognize me, and then he held the rest of them to, that's the new standard. Yes. And in the moment I went, why is he doing that? Oh my gosh, he just put everybody on my heels. But it was all about everyone on the team iron sharpens iron, and everyone on the team has to make everyone on the team better. And I'm not going to make any decisions as the leader of this team that cost the team something. So if everything is for the betterment of the team, and I think about the way that he led me and the way he believed in me and drove me, and my dad as well, because my dad went above and beyond as a parent, like hired me an outside coach, made sure he collaborated with my coach, opened a club so that he could have his brother coach us in the off season, so that our team was together for the entire year. And, we were all strategizing of how do we create a state championship team. And then, when we did, I can look back on that now and go, he never put pressure on me as a player. He just held a standard and then let me step into it. And when I interviewed him recently, he said, tell my players all the time, you think I need a championship ring? I don't. I've got them. This is about, if you want one, this is what you have to do. I already have state championships. I'm not here for me. I'm here to hold you guys to a standard.
So I love this topic. I think this is so important, right? And Jen, you were a competitive dancer, competitive cheerleading coming up, right? And so, and again, with my baseball background, we have that in common of like trying to, be part of a team, and some of it's individual, some of it's more team focused, right? Jen, I'm curious, like, did you have that same, like, were you held to that? I'm curious, just held to that same standard by your coaches? Was it different? Was it similar? Because I'll let you answer. I think this is such a critical thing from a leadership perspective and coaching.
Absolutely. And I think it's awesome that Jenni selected someone that wasn't, a traditional boss. I think about all of my dance coaches, gymnastics coaches, cheerleading coaches, and the reason I have the discipline, the reason I can accept feedback, the reason I'm a great coach is because of them. I got into the quote unquote real world, having all of those skills. Again, I wasn't the best dancer. I wasn't the best cheerleader, but I listened to feedback. If I didn't agree with it, if I thought it was weird, or like, no, I can do that already, I would just say, got it, thank you, and continue to learn. And that's why too, just like Jenni, I was in the front and center, not because I was the best, but I was always the one willing to listen, accept the feedback, be a team player. But certainly my instructors and my coaches saw that too. So they would continue to elevate where I was at. and maybe make it a little bit tougher for me. I know me as a dance instructor as well, there were kids that were phenomenal, getting the titles and things like that. And they weren't the easiest to work with because they were combative. They would give me a hard time.
Yeah.
And the ones that I actually loved working with, maybe they weren't placing, maybe they were sometimes, but they always had a smile on their face. They were on time to class. They were prepared. They were ready, and they were excited to do an awesome job and learn. And I think for me, that helped translate and a lot into the way that I lead, any teams that I have now, no matter what industry, how big of a team, where they're at in their role, if they're, a brand new part-time advisor, that was in a past life, or they were, a manager that had been managing for 5-10 years. I learned so much from athletics and sports and how I was, relationship to my coaches.
Yeah. So coachability, I think, is a key element in growing and developing and being able to, whether you're an entrepreneur and a business owner to you are in a sales leader, like whatever role, I think coachability is a key component. Do you both agree or not? Or if you have it, 100%. Like you'll go further. If you don't, you won't. Like, what are your perspectives on this?
Well, okay. I have a neat perspective because my entire life, what I was told by every coach I've ever had since I was 5 is you're the most coachable player I've ever had. And that does, in context of like everything in sports, in jobs. And then at one point in my coaching career, like when I decided I'm going to be a leadership coach, and I started doing personal development work. And what's interesting about when you start doing personal development work is the coaching becomes more subjective and less objective. In sports, it's drop your shoulder and snap your wrist harder and the ball's going to go down faster. Like that's like an objective form piece of feedback. Then you get into personal development and it becomes a lot more nuanced, a lot more, well, I'm thinking maybe you should move in this direction. And then I got the coaching. You're too coachable. You're taking coaching from everywhere. You need to start to be discerning.
Yes.
Who's a better coach than me? Who can do it better than me? And you've got to look at their results. And if they don't have better results than you, don't take the coaching. And that has really served me in my professional career. Because what I've found is, and James taught me this, there is a psychological phenomenon called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the less you know about something, the more you think you're an expert. And the more you become an expert, the more you realize you don't know. So there can be this duality or almost like a paradox to coaches when you start to get into more subjective coaching, like coaching around leadership, coaching around personal development, psychological breakthroughs, that sort of thing, where if you only know a little bit, you might think, oh, I know so much about this, I'm going to offer coaching, versus someone who knows a lot can almost slip back into this imposter syndrome thing where they go like, there's so much on this subject, I just don't even know if I can scratch the surface of it. And the people who have become my mentors have taught me that when you select a coach, as I think when you're a kid, it's so much easier to avoid that because you don't know a lot. So, you get placed on a team. If you're a teenager and you got a state championship volleyball coach, that's an easy, like, look, this guy knows what he's talking about. But as an adult, you run into people all the time that may say they're a great coach or may say they're an expert and they want to give you advice. And if you don't trust but verify that they've got the results to back that up, you might end up digesting some advice that actually isn't very good. So now my philosophy is always be as coachable as possible with your coach who you've chosen to be your coach. Yep. And you gotta vet your coaches and select them based on the demonstration of the skill set that you want to acquire.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, it's so interesting because even me coming into like both of your world, right, of making certain decisions and things like that. And I look at coachability as an openness. And then I'm a processor. So it's me working through like, will that work? Will it not? Do I agree? Do I not? So kind of that discernment, right? To use that word, Jenni, of
that's really good to do.
Yeah. Is that something I want to do? And I'm curious. So Jen, when you talk about like Blake or like other leaders you've had, and maybe let's talk Lululemon real quick, right? Because you guys both have a really interesting journey between Lululemon.
Oh yeah, and I have great examples of Lululemon too. I listen. I had the best leaders at Lululemon as well.
Oh yeah, and this is what I love is, let's talk Lululemon specifically, right? You guys are in this retail environment, creating something great. I have Lululemon pants on right now.
Love it.
I put them on, not especially for this, but I love them. So
I'm wearing Lululemon. Jen, are you in Lululemon?
Shockingly, not today, but typically I am in an Align pant 6 out of 7 days of the week.
Yeah. So yes, so good product, good company, stuff like that. When you look back at like building teams at Lululemon, right? Again, let's stay on this. We can go off this coachability, but was everyone that came through the door coachable, open, ready to grow and learn? And if not, what strategies did you all have to either get them to that level or do something with it? So I don't know, Jen, does an instance or story come to mind for you first, and then we'll switch over to Jenni, or vice versa?
I think for me, gosh, I haven't been at Lululemon in 6 years, it's so awesome to like reflect, because I think for me and for a lot of people we hired that came through the door, and really our customers to a certain extent as well, I think the thing that was different, and the way that I felt at Lululemon, it was a coaching and develop company that happened to sell yoga apparel. So for us, the development stuff was more important than the bottom line. So we actually, in many of our team meetings, didn't open up with, all right, this is our target for the week, for the month, for the year, whatever. How are we going to drive sales? We had like a 30-minute icebreaker that drove culture, and there were tears, there were laughs, there were connections. We would go take a yoga class together. On our evaluations, it wasn't, okay, Jenni, let's tally up how many pairs of pants you sold and what was your return rate and how many, upsells did you have? It was like, 9 to 18 different core values, and how were you living into them? And then what were some values that you could, do better with? And what resources can I support you with? So for us, and that really helped shape a lot of what I did take to Tesla too, because we allowed truly the metrics to tell a story, but we helped support people's development through, genuine connection, community, honesty, all of these things, rather than just like a pretty aggressive sales floor. And then what we saw was, when these things were clicking, when we, were honest with each other about communication, when we were honest with each other about like, hey, you're not having a great day, don't just suck it up and sit in the back. Like, what do you need? Do you need to go home? Do you need to go take a class? When those things started to happen, the sales came naturally, and we would blow everything, out of the water. So I think that was the first time, I ever got to experience that approach. And I came from a company where I was a GM, and they would only hire me as an assistant manager. And I was pissed. I was like, what do you mean? I'm going to take a pay grade, a demotion, all these things. And then I was like, wow, it wasn't, because I could sell anything. Before I sold, I worked for Fastenal. So I sold wholesale, I was selling to Boeing, GKN, all these cool things. I was like, I could sell $500,000 copper wire. Like, you're telling me I can't be a retail general manager? But the stuff that I was exposed to, on like truly why like people and connection were important for growth, like blew my mind. And then I was able to get really clear on that, really good at that, with many learnings, and help people develop into those roles that they wanted to, besides just, sales obviously were incredible, but we were able to take the business so much further because we had all of those tools in our belt as well. So,
and that's so backwards in a lot of cases for a lot of companies, right? Where it's, especially sales groups, it's sales first, lead with metrics. We'll worry about the culture later.
Absolutely.
And I think there's like unique companies that have that kind of formula that seems counterintuitive, but it works, right?
Yeah.
What was the goal? So what advice would you both have for a leader listening to this right now who wants to make that shift, right? And doesn't necessarily have to be a salesperson, right, in a sales group, but is there like one tip or that they can start to implement to begin the shift where it's like culture first, like truly culture first, like I care first and then sales later? Because it's counterintuitive, but what would you both say to that?
I think I had a moment, well, like everything Jen said is spot on with that Lululemon has, even from the inception of the brand, if you look at the way that the brand was created in its history and the way that the training that was provided to anyone who is a manager within the company, there was, even before Lululemon now has its own leadership training school, basically. And we have they have paid, I was one of the leadership life coaches, like where now you can have your own life coach if you're an employee for Lululemon, and they train us internally inside the brand. But I worked for them for 12 years. And when I first came on board, it was like the second you put your hand up and said, I want to learn, I want to be on the leadership team, they paid for you to go and get external training in leadership development. And they would partner with an external leadership development program where everyone was going to the same school. And then they decided over the course of a decade, now we've grown to the size where we can do this internally. But the sentiment behind that is my whole team is going to speak the same language. There was a core library. There was, the libraries evolved. So the 7 core books that were given to me when I first started training to be a manager have now changed. They're always evolving it, and how can we make it better? What's changed in leadership? What's changed in communication? Let's provide people with new tools. But it would be like, okay, management team of this store, everyone read these 7 books. Everyone go and do this external training. Everyone develop this language of how we talk to each other. We joke that there's a Lululemon lexicon where there's things lemons say to each other that's a shorthand for how to get performance out of each other.
We
and
were
what's
just talking about that the other day.
Yeah. And what's incredible about it is when you read books about company culture, like in the culture code, the author has a whole section about create your own language so that people feel like you're entering a world of it's beyond just what the bottom line and what your outcome is. This is how we approach and communicate with one another. And I think that Lululemon as a company, for the people that I worked with, and I also, in a company that big, there may even be someone out there listening right now that works in a store and is like, that's not my experience of the company. Yeah. That was very eye-opening to me. I think I had between 13 and 20 different leaders over my 12 years at Lululemon. And there were moments where the culture was absolutely alive. And by that, I mean what we say the culture is as a brand. And then there were moments where I experienced it as completely dead. So I learned that a company truly is just a collection of individuals. And it's the leader's responsibility to be that metronome of what the pulse and the tempo of the culture is. And if it doesn't come down from the top, you can't expect culture to be a grassroots campaign. It is trickling down from the leader. And what was really fortunate for me was I was fortunate enough to work for leaders that were very people focused, and they focused on relationship and connection as their primary goal. And then everything else kind of formed around that. Like I remember going for coaching to one of my mentors. And I said, I had to say as a manager, sometimes your job is to just set a boundary or say, no, we can't do that. Like that's the reality is like people bring you ideas and sometimes you just have to say, no, not going to work. Doesn't work for the company, doesn't work for the team, doesn't work for whatever reason. And the answer is no. And this one person that I was working with, anytime I told her no, and for me, it wasn't a no from me personally. It was like, we have rules written down on a website. No, it's a corporate no. So I didn't understand the pushback when I was saying, I'm telling you no. And she would then want to spar with me around why it should be a yes. And I went to my mentor and I was like, it's frustrating for me because I feel like I am the messenger delivering a no from what I've been told I need to do from the company. And he said, let me ask you this. What kind of relationship do you have with this person? And it kind of threw me, and I was like, well, okay. I only work with this person 1 day a week for a few hours. So we're kind of ships in the night. I've never had a personal conversation with them. Don't know anything about their life. Really, I just experience them as I got to tell them no, and they hate it. And my leader said to me, drop everything, all the coaching you have to give this individual, and just see the next time you're in a room with them, if you can connect. And the next time I saw them, I slowed down and I asked, hey, how are you doing? I never ask you what's really going on in your life. Tell me something about you. And we then proceeded to have this connection conversation where we found out that our dads had very similar illnesses, and that we as the daughter were like grappling with that. And we had this bonding moment of like, oh my gosh, we're so similar. I just got chills thinking about this.
Yes.
And I left it at that. The very next time I went to her and said, can't do that. She went, okay. No pushback whatsoever. And I went, oh my gosh, at Lululemon, they have a list of values. That's what a leader is. And they've grouped them into these categories of, this is the values for leading yourself. These are the values for leading other people. And these are the values for leading an organization or a team. And the distinction between like, do you have one direct report or do you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 40, and you have to expand in those values, and it takes different skill sets. But being in relationship was one of the primary ones that was required for leading another person. And I don't think I ever viewed it that way until I was challenged by that leader of, I don't think she has a problem hearing no. I think you don't have a relationship with her.
Yes.
And it completely shifted it. And I never looked at leadership the same way. So now when I started training other leaders, I taught them to lead with vulnerability, connect with the people that you're with, and then communicate like a human being, not come in with this armor on of I'm the boss and I know everything, which is when you read, I love Kim Scott so much. I love that book, Radical Candor. That was a book that was introduced to me through Lululemon. It kind of entered the Lululemon core library. And I think that show up as your whole self to work, lead from a place of people first, but also hold what the corporation needs or the business needs. And you have to learn to straddle those two lines really well. And that's the work as the leader.
So I have to ask this, and because I feel like I'm not part of the secret society, but I want to be part of the secret society. So when you say the lemons say certain things, is there an example, like one? And I don't want to get you in trouble because the secret society. But
and I'm sign an NDA.
Well, a lot of it is like how doctors have a shorthand when they're writing prescription. Like prescription is RX on a little notepad. You write RX, that means prescription. So some of it, I would say like 50 to 70% of it is Lululemon has acronyms that are 3 letters for what it stands for, like standard operating procedure, SOP. BOH is back of house. Store inventory lead is the SIL. So you could be like, I sent the SIL to the BOH to get the SOP for pulling the restock. And a lemon would understand exactly what I just said, but someone else would be like, what? That was gibberish. So that's part of it, is you learn the ABCs of being a lemon. The other is that you, like, for example, inside of the practice of leadership, I always think values are a lot like flavors of ice cream. The word that I use might not be the flavor that you use. Like you might say bravery, but I say courage, and Jen says tenacity, and like it's all the same kind of thing, but we've all got a different flavor of it. So there's also things that are within the culture where you're trained in. These are the 12 values in leadership. These are the 6 core values of the company. And then when you evaluate anyone in their performance as the leader, you sit down with the 12 practices of leadership. So when I go to you with like, this is what you're working on, Matt, you're not going, Matt, I need you to be a little bit braver. It's like our core value word for that is courage. So I'm going to say, let's talk about how you're using courage in your life. And so it creates a vernacular where we're in agreement. This is the term we use to express this experience.
Yes.
Jen, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think that was, you took us on a Lululemon ride for sure. I think there was some other like fun ones too. When we would go, we wouldn't just go work out. We would go to sweat. Like that was like a huge thing. We had like the sweat life, job love. I mean, I don't know if that's still, at Lululemon, but
that's still in it. Or like we don't say, it's a luxury brand. So we don't say the word sale. We say marked down. The product is marked down.
There were different things
Yeah. So it's like little shifts in, but what's so cool about that, I think, from a leadership perspective, is connection and communication to me are the two pinnacle values that leaders should have and constantly be trying to sharpen their skill in.
Yes.
And the fact that Lululemon is present to, we're going to be really specific with the way we teach everyone from like part-time entry-level seasonal educator, which is our sales floor salesperson, to like the CEO. We're all using the same vernacular. I think that's a very clever way to inject intentional communication into a huge organization.
Agreed. And now I feel a little more like part of the secret society. So I really appreciate that. I feel like there's something you're holding back on, but I won't put.
Well, I'm sure there's more like it. Yeah, I mean, we can't reveal the passcode for our secret, the secret password for. I'm just kidding. No, exactly. That you do get into a pattern of how you talk about things. Like, do you have anything to clear? Is like a very Lululemon thing to say. And like Jen was saying, like if you have and we don't call them sales associates, we call them educators, because they're not there to sell. They're there to educate people on the product. That's an example. But if like she said, if an educator seemed off, we would say, what do you need to go to the back and clear, which they understood. We would teach them what this means. Like, this is what a clearing is. This is how we do it. This is how it's going to look. These are the questions your manager is going to ask you. And people got in the practice of, like, if I said, are you clear right now? I know what that means as a member of the Lululemon team. You know what I mean? So there's 1,000 examples, but it was shorthand with each other of like.
I love that. Yeah. Well, to your point, it's that overall communication, right? And I think the most powerful thing that you both have talked about is that connection with people, right? And getting to know, it's that relationship first, connection first. It doesn't mean you have to be BFFs with anyone, but it's just getting to know them, caring, talking, and that vulnerability. I think that's such a missing component today. And the other thing that you both said is, I'm so adamant about today is, especially in today's society, not to go down this path too far, but we have got to reestablish the standard and hold the standard, right? In the way that we treat people and the expectations we have of people. Mm-hmm. And I just think we're at that time in society that you both talked about, that the standard was held. I know at Lululemon, at obviously at Tesla, some other companies that you all have worked for. And I know at the company you're at right now, the standard is high and it's held, and the relationships are important. And I just wanted to repeat that so that the listeners kind of, again, that sinks in a little bit of kind of my takeaways. I think that's so critical. I want to shift real quick because you both went from pretty large corporations, like really large corporations, to Team Wedmore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fabulous company, fabulous organization run by a great guy. But that's a big shift from big to small, right? And I know James' company isn't that small, but in comparison, right? You're to the David versus Goliath, the kind of thing, right? Not against each other, but Jen, I'm curious, what was your transition like from these big companies, from a culture perspective, all that sort of stuff, to where you're at now? What was different? What was similar? I'm curious your perspective. And Jenni, I want to ask you that same question as well.
Ooh, wow. I'm like, I have like a physical reaction to, my 1 year departure from Tesla was a year ago in 4 days. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting. And I think for me, like at the point that I was in my life, my husband was in PA school. So I was all in. I could work 12, 13-hour days. I grew. I think I was in like 8 to 9 different roles and locations and things like that. And I had energy for days and got a lot of really, really cool opportunities. Things were moving really, really fast. And for me, I think some priorities changed. And I spent about 5 years at Tesla, and I realized that what I was looking for wasn't going to be the fast paced, the craziness, the managing teams of 60 to 100 people would be underneath me sometimes. And I loved that. And I learned so much from that. And I actually left Tesla without a plan. I wanted to just take a break, relax, reconnected with Jenni. And I think what the biggest difference that I was excited about was I've been a manager for so long. I've been a people manager, which I love. I had out of college, my first job was part-time, making I think $12.50 an hour. And in 2 years, I grew to be the GM of that location. And I'm just naturally a people person. I love coaching. I love teaching. I love being in relationship with people. And it's a great thing. And sometimes it's not such a great thing because you take on these responsibilities that are absolutely incredible, and you get to teach and see people, become really successful in partnership with your leadership. And I learned so much at Lululemon, and then I got to really take that to the next level at Tesla. And what I'm really, really excited about at Team Wedmore is I'm an individual contributor right now. So I don't have this massive team of people that I'm managing. But I still feel that same sense of accomplishment. So all of the leadership skills, the communication skills, my values as a person, I think that's the thing that is really the most different for me working at Team Wedmore versus a corporation, is that we are, quote unquote, a small team, and we're very tight knit, and we get to continue and create these values as a tight knit team. It can, as Jenni was saying, as great as these companies, Lululemon, we had all these core values. It does, when you're working at a company with 80, 100,000 people, it gets diluted. You have to make shareholders happy, things like that. It happens.
Yes.
But what James doesn't accept is us losing sight of our core values as a team and as a human. One of our core values is lives on purpose. So it has actually nothing to do with work. It's like, who are you coming to work as a human, but also like, are you taking a break in the middle of the day to go do something that you love? Are you going to hike? Two of the folks on the team just had a new baby. Like, are you making sure you're being honest with me about what you need to make sure your family life transition is one that works first for you and then second the business? So that's the biggest difference for me, is moving into our smaller business. Is I'm at a point in my life where I've gotten to climb the corporate ladder, which has been absolutely incredible. I truthfully, some of the things I got to experience and do at Tesla are just once in a lifetime career opportunities, truly. But to be able to go home for the first time for the holidays in 6 years and spend 2 weeks with my family this year.
Yes.
The first Christmas I spent with my niece and nephew. You cannot put a salary dollar, a stock options. You can't put any of that on that. So beyond any project I get to work on, podcast I get to be on, any of these accolades, I get to now work at a job that walks the walk with saying, I value you as a human just as much, or maybe even more than you as an employee.
For all you sales managers and leaders out there, I wonder if you've ever thought the phrase, why in the world did I sign up for this? I know I have. And the reality is that leading a team of salespeople can be challenging, right? Just figuring out how to motivate each person and keep the pipeline full and just dealing with the pressure of delivering the month after month results that your company is requiring. And call me an optimist, but amidst the challenge, amidst sometimes the frustration, we have this opportunity in front of us to really impart our knowledge, right? And to leave that legacy on our team and just achieve next level results. And that's why today I want to personally invite you to our free masterclass training, where I'm going to share the exact secrets, the exact framework that I teach sales leaders around North America to help just take you to next level results for you and your team. And it's actually the exact framework that I taught one of my clients who, over a 12-month period, tripled organic revenue growth and increased margin by 30%. So I want to invite you to that masterclass. You can click the link below or head over to mattphillipscoaching.com/webinar, and can't wait to see you in the training. Yep. I love that. Again, I want your perspective here in a minute, Jenni, but I think what's important is, I think at any company of any size, you can create that sort of stuff, right? But if you're in the circumstance where you can't, it's how do you kind of work from that place and go find that thing where you can have this, I don't want to call it work-life balance, but the purposes personally and professionally are aligned. Maybe I'll say it that way. They're aligned.
Yeah.
And they're working together.
You need to come up with a word for that, Matt, because I feel like work-life balance, people resist so much anyway. And
yes,
what's balance mean? But it's that. It's like exactly what you said. That
right.
Yeah, it's like what works for you. Because I mean, for me, balance used to be me working. I would commute to Dallas over an hour every day, work 12 to 14 hours, loved it. That was great. I would DoorDash my food. I thrived.
Yes.
Thrived. And then things change for me. It's not to knock any of the companies or, what they stand for, but it stopped working, for what I needed.
And I think that connection too, as bosses, as leaders, it's how do we be aware of that, where shifts are occurring with our team, and can we accommodate that? Maybe sometimes, hopefully, maybe not.
Yeah.
And that's okay either way, I guess, but it's can we make shifts to what we're doing? I love that. I love that perspective. What about you, Jenni? What was the biggest difference? I know I'll be aware of time, so I can spend hours with you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. My transition to Team Wedmore was a bit of a surprise for both James and I. And obviously, I have a little bit of bias because in addition to being my boss, he's also the love of my life. So I think he's an incredible leader. But when what had happened was he and I's relationship had taken off to a point where we really did not want to continue to live in different states. Because for a while I was still living in when we first began dating again. And he is, for those listening, we have a 20-year history. He was my first boyfriend, first love. We were each other's first love. And then we spent a decade apart and then came back together. Yes. So when we came back together, I was still living in Texas and he was in Sedona. And I was commuting back and forth, and I had gotten a contract remote role with Lululemon that allowed me to work wherever I wanted, but they were very coveted and they were very limited. And I was really in a lot of ways, someone was asking me recently, Lululemon asked me to come and guest speak on a call. And I was listing out, they were like, give us a little bit of your bio when you were with the company. And I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, when I left, I had gotten all the roles that I had been chasing for 10 years. I was a leadership coach. I was on the farm team. I was on the regional training team. I was part of the SSC or the GEC. Now I'm forgetting all the acronyms. GEC training. And it was like I had ticked all the boxes of climbing the ladder I wanted to climb. And I kept applying for roles that would allow me to remain remote. And I kept being told, it's not you yet. We don't have it yet, but please be patient because we want to place you on a team. And James kept watching me go for these roles, go for these roles, go for these roles. And finally, he came in one day to my room. I was just getting ready. We were about to go visit his family. And he goes, do you want to quit and just work for me? And it was like the most easy yes I've ever said in my life, which I actually was in the mindset. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have been like, I'm at Lululemon for life. I'm going to go all the way into I had finally I was working with the department head of leadership and development at Lululemon. Like finally that person knew my name. So to me, it was like, it's a matter of time. before I am on like the corporate leadership and development content team. I'm making it happen. And I was moving up. And then all of a sudden I just like ghosted, it was like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm going to go work for James. And at the time, he didn't really have a role for me in the company. He placed me as the mastermind head coach. And he said, this year, let's do this. Everything you've been doing with leaders at Lululemon, how you train, I was training new managers and team leaders.
Yes.
It's like, why don't you do that inside of my mastermind? And you can run your own annual program. You can give them whatever content you want. You can, a lot of my time at Lululemon, if Lululemon was very fast at giving us new tools if they didn't have one, but I wasn't willing to wait. So if my team had a communication breakdown and we didn't have a corporate tool that taught them how to do it, I would then go and make it up. And then we would use my model until the model came down from Vancouver, and then we had to stop using mine. So I had all this accrued communication models that I had used that I knew worked because I had guinea pigged them out on all these teams.
Yes.
But so I did that for a year, and then James's growth team manager unexpectedly decided to to leave. She moved states. She wanted to change careers. She was getting engaged. It was like Jen said, just a big life change moment. I'm going to do this now. And she left, and James and Jilly interviewed me for the role. And I went to them and I said, the way I observed the team, and this is just an observation because I'm not in it, but we had some turnover within the departments, and I had listened to all the feedback that had come in about why they had to fire or people had quit. I can't remember if they fired anyone, but I know as roles turned over, there was like a insight of like, okay, how do we elevate that? How do we do better for next time? And I said, what I'm seeing in the sales department, in growth and sales, is that everyone works in silo. The podcast manager, the social media manager, the sales manager, the promotion manager, everyone's doing their own thing. But I don't see a lot of coming together, strategizing, and then each department working like this machine of like, we're all in the same web. And if you bring me in as a manager, that's my style as a leader, is not everyone go to your corners and produce your work. It's everyone's work is in an assembly line with the entire growth team. So if you choose me, I want to pick my own team and I want to stack the deck, and they're going to work in cohesion together, which means I'm going to have team meetings, which Team Wedmore is like prided themselves on. We only have one meeting. It's 15 minutes a week. And that's it. That's
not no meetings Friday. It's no meetings ever.
No meetings Monday. It's just like, they have a team meeting from 4 to 4:15 on Mondays, and then everyone goes and does their work. Like, what's the problem? And obviously nothing's broken here. I'm entering a multi-million-dollar company. So it's not like, please, Jenni, save us. That wasn't the case. I just made it clear, like, if you choose me to lead this team, this is how I like to lead. And James and Jilly were really open to it. They were like, yeah, okay, go for it. So the first person I recruited was Jen, because of when I think back of like, you have moments in your careers where you meet people where the two of you just complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. It's like a balance. And Jen and I were always that way. It's like where I'm really good at the big picture, Jen can take the details and finish it off. Where I'm really good at calendaring and telling us when, Jen's going to get the deadlines and make sure we hit the mark, and we communicate really naturally. Our personalities are quite similar. There's always a solution. We get excited by a challenge. So as soon as she texted me, I've been listening to the podcast and I'm considering leaving Tesla. I went to James and was like, do you think we could get Jen P? And when Jen came on, then we had other openings in the team, and Jen and I together started using our skill set in hiring, which is like that's a whole nother episode on leadership. And
we need to do one on that. I think that'd be awesome. Yeah,
it's like, how do you pick your squad? But Jen and I we used to hire together at Lululemon. Like both of us were hiring managers for a while for our store. So we have a very similar approach to how we vet people and what vetting does Jen do and what vetting does Jenni do? And together we were really confident we can build this little growth team. And we we built our team, and there's 4 of us on the growth team. We have like what I call a little alternate, which is my sister is a copywriter that comes in sometimes to join our meetings. But the 4 of us on the growth team, even though we have very, very individualized roles, we come together all the time. Like, I mean, we're talking several meetings a week where we'll just text each other. You guys want to get on Zoom together? And this is unheard of in Team Wedmore. I hadn't seen a department do this except for us. And they all love to work that way. And the first year of my growth team role, Jen came on like 6 months after me, but she came on before the next launch. So she was part of like this expansive growth. And at the end of this year, James was like, this new growth team took a $10 million business to 12 million. That's 2 more million in 1 year. And it was huge. Like, it infused a lot of like, a good idea can come from anywhere, and we all work together to drive it. And everyone is having so much fun. But it's funny to look back and be like, wow, that was, for me, I was surprised at how congruent and similar what I do inside of James's team was what I was doing at Lululemon.
Yes.
It's in a lot of ways, it's like sales is sales no matter what. Like Jen said, it's like you're selling copper wire, you're selling yoga pants, you're selling a digital program. It's like sales and marketing is sales and marketing. Leadership is leadership. Yep. And communication with a team and driving performance is the same whether you're on a high school volleyball team or you're on a high performing adult team of digital experts. Yes. And these skills you can just reapply if you're like aware and you're learning. So I think in some ways it's completely different than what I was doing, but in other ways it's exactly what I was doing. It's like everything I did before trained me for this. And I would echo what Jen said. The biggest difference for me is that the amount of freedom that's available in a smaller company with what we do is unmatched. I mean, I can start my day at any time. Today, I ran into a friend walking her dog, and I just said, "You want to go to lunch?" And we dropped everything and we went to lunch. I would never in my life have I been able to do that ever, you know. And same thing. I went home to work in retail for over a decade. You get to spend Christmas with your family now. It had gotten to a point where my family laid out my Christmas Eve pajamas. Then it was so sad. I'd come home and my little Christmas Eve pajamas are waiting on the bed, and they had just totally resigned to Jen's not participating in Christmas Eve because I was at the store. Yes. And I think that what you said about connecting your purpose with how you live your life is like, that to me is part of like designing, you know, bringing it full circle to like business by design. It's like you as a leader should also be looking at how can I design the life that I want to lead and how I want to lead it for my team. And I also just adore now that what we do at the end of the day, Jen and I get to go, we really helped people live into their purpose, to deliver their dharma, to create their own business, to whatever they're passionate about, they get to go and do that in their digital business. Versus when I was at Lululemon, there was always this part of like, no matter how great the personal development was, at the end of the day, it was still about yoga gear.
Right.
And I struggled with that, you know, like at the end of the day for Jen at Tesla, it's still about moving cars.
Yep.
No matter how amazing your leadership is, it's still a business to sell the vehicle. And I love what we do now because it's more about creating a life with other people and through their business.
And I love how both of you talked about it's the leveraging, right, of the skill set you've had before and how do you leverage into what you're doing now. And again, I believe, because I've been part of big companies too, where you can create that, right? And I think sometimes I see leaders hold back a little bit from creating what they want to create because they feel like they have to kind of fit in the culture of that organization. When I sit there and say, no, within your little sphere of influence, create what you want to create and create that environment of like great people, connection, relationship, whatever your philosophy is around leadership, create that, go do that. But it starts with that defining of what that is first, which I think is incredible. Now, I've taken this over. Do you have a few more minutes or do you guys need to go?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So two more questions. The last one I'm going to ask where they can find you, connect with you, and we'll get to that here in a second. But there's one component that I want to discuss with you both too, and it's around this concept of intuition. And we talked a little bit earlier about that discernment, which I kind of take and say that's discernment. It's the part of intuitions. I think listening to yourself, I'm curious to dive into both of your definitions, but having that intuition as a leader, it's an important thing. It's something to pay attention to. It's something we work on in the mastermind too, right? Of just pausing for a minute, listening, paying attention. Some people view it as like woo-woo or out there. And I'm like, no, it's not. And we won't get to the neuroscience and all that stuff today and nerd out on it. But talk to me a little bit about kind of your focus on this concept of intuition and how from a leadership perspective, how we need to kind of embrace it, use it, and leverage it into kind of how we lead people.
Jen, do you want to take that one first?
I'll take it first because I have a little bit of a different spin, of course, than you. But I think for me, a lot of the decisions that I made were just going, quote unquote, going with my gut. When I started really at any company that I was working at, I didn't have experience in retail, apparel. When I went to Tesla, I didn't even get oil changes in my car properly. So, was really like a totally like not in my element for a lot of these things. And I think for me, I just always tuned into the fact that I do have a diverse background. I know that whatever decision I make is in the best interest of first, my team, our customers, and the company. And the decision that I make isn't going to burn the business down. So how can I use the resources that I have? How can I use the knowledge that I've acquired in the past? What do I know right now? And whatever decision I make right now is going to be the right one. And how lucky am I that I'm going to get to make the decision, but I can also learn from it afterwards. So a little bit less woo-woo. I lost a little bit of the woo when I was at Tesla, but I think there's and I've got it back now with Jenni, but yeah. I think for me, there's always something that I've been present to now, but I just couldn't put a finger on it in the past is there are some things that just come to me and I just know. I helped create, it wasn't a brand new role as a role in corporate, but Tesla didn't have a general manager role. And I had an idea with Blake to create this role. So both of us didn't have experience in the service sector. So, we were like, what would it look like if someone oversaw sales, service, and delivery all together? A lot of the work that we both did together, we didn't know what we were doing, but we used each other as guides and just said, again, like I said before, like what tools do we have now? What do we have in front of us now? What have we done in the past? And what is our gut telling us to do? Because we know where the company wants to go. Let's just make a decision, ride with it, and learn from it. So I think that especially at a lot of corporate jobs, you can overthink. You can, what's in the handbook? What is this other manager going to think? What's going to be like on my performance review? What is my team going to think if I make a mistake? And I actually didn't care about those things. I cared about them because I'm like, if I don't make these decisions, if I don't innovate, if I don't get creative, then those things, I know they're going to be effective. So I kind of tried to take a little bit of a different spin on it, and was able to make some really big moves by just trusting my gut. Definitely made a lot of big mistakes, but without that failure, I wouldn't have grown to where I got to. And now, in many, I think probably most sites now, there are general managers. We worked on what salary, compensation, role description, all that kind of stuff looks like. And it's been really cool to see that what was just a pilot started with me, then 5 other people, to be a global role that is really, really helping drive the results of the company.
Love that. And I love that description too. I'm a big go with your gut guy too, probably to a fault. And I always called it that.
Point, I just know, or I just have this feeling, and really I'll chat a little bit here and then hand it over to Jenni, but working with her has really taught me that, like, it's not just at work. It's like in my life, there are different things, or just helping, friends come to me for advice all the time. And they're like, how do you make these decisions? Even with, jumping from these different careers. I lived in New York for my whole life. I was running a massive Lululemon store. I was on the board for a veterans org, all these things. And I just let it go. And I was like, I need to move to Texas. And people are like, you don't know anyone, you don't have friends, you don't have family. I'm like, find me. And that's the funny thing is I knew I needed to go. And I went. And every decision that I've made, it's like, yeah, I got to have money to live, whatever. I got to have a job, but I can always go back home if I hate it. And I just made these decisions based on not the amount of money that I would be getting, because I knew my value and I could say yes to what was offering me the value that I deserved and no to what wasn't, because there was endless possibility out there. And I just kept saying yes to what, yes, no. And it's funny because it led me to back to the one person that I met in Austin. If I hadn't moved there, all these different things that I got to take on, instead of being, in my head and being what was logical, everyone knows me in New York, I've got this great career, this, to going to demoting myself, actually, because I knew that more important than any job or career, to be the leader and to be the person that people looked to for inspiration and wanted to listen to and help grow them, I needed to be honest with myself. So, and what I learned now is that was my intuition, and tapping into a knowing that, is more than just trusting my gut or just making a on the fly decision.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Jenni,
well, Jen jokes I have a different perspective because I'm an intuition coach, and I'm a psychic intuitive, and I grew up in a psychic family, and I'm an identical twin. So, I grew up with this, like, for lack of a better term, superpower of just, I've always just have my little intuition radars just on. I came in that way. So, I think one thing that I've noticed is that people who are magnetized towards leadership roles, and what I mean by that is I have a lot of friends, and myself included, where even if you go into an environment where you think, I am just here to participate, and you just end up somehow becoming the leader. That happened to me when my leadership at Lululemon, literally I had left the company and I was living in Australia, and one of my managers reached out and said, please come back and work for me. And I said, I'll do it, but it's for 6 months in a part-time role. I'm not leading anything. And then cut to 6 months later, or a year later, I was like the assistant manager. It's like, you just find yourself putting your hand up to be the leader.
Yes.
Usually people who have that experience of themselves, you have really great instincts. And whether that's, I just know, I just feel it, I got a gut feeling, there's a level of that's intuitive, which I think is two things. One is like having an internal compass for yourself, like what's my true north, what's my truth, what's the direction I need to move in. But I deeply believe in this concept that all of us are rippling into one another. My choices impact your choices, impact my team's choices, and that we get to impact each other in that way. Like, we're living in a community and a society. And so what's pulling you is also beneficial to someone else. Like, it rippled into my life, Jen's decision to move to Texas.
Yes.
And what was wild is even after she left Tesla, I ended up being, for whatever reason, intuition, the person that her now husband reached out and said, will you help me with the proposal? And he was like, I just said, who's Jen's closest friend in Austin? And I just went, it's Jenni. I don't like, that's who came to mind. And that was just an intuitive hit that he had, which I call intuitive hit, stands for higher intelligence talking. It just hits you, and it's something beyond you that's trying to communicate with you. And then that connection just put her back on my radar. And then some days she goes, I'm going to listen to the podcast, and I'm going to intuitively text Jenni. And then I went, wait a minute, James, what about Jen? Jen could be on our team. And look at all these little intuitive decisions.
Yes.
And even James saying, why don't you quit Lululemon, come to work for me? Sometimes intuition is you leap without the net. And I think a lot of people think as a leader, your intuition has to mean you see the entire roadmap for your whole team or organization. And in my experience, both as like a very practiced psychic and teacher of this, intuition gives you the next available action. And it's almost like this little window of opportunity where you go, am I going to step out on this ledge and see what happens? When James had the intuition to hire me, he went, you want to leave Lululemon? You want to come work for me? There were 1,000 logical reasons to say no. One, everyone in my life warned me against, are you sure you want to work with your partner? Yes. Which, you know, now they don't like talking to James and I about it because we find that it's elevated our relationship and we work so easily together that it annoys other married couples that like are like, are you kidding me? I want to
kill the other person.
Work with my spouse. But it's the opposite for us, but we were warned against that. And then also I had a decade-long career where finally the doors are opening and I'm just going to walk away from that for no role, basically, just like do this for a year and let's see what happens. That's jumping without a net. We both did that. And then we never could have predicted where we are now, but it was just this intuitive, yes, that's the right thing for me to do. And you go as far as you can see with your intuition, and then you see a little further and you take the next step and you take the next step. And for me, intuition is this dance with the universe of trust and faith and the deep belief that we are connected and guided beyond our self-interest and our own self, that there's something bigger than us that we're a part of. And when you follow your intuition, you're actually honoring that acknowledgement that your decisions ripple into someone else's. Like imagine if the role that I left at Lululemon got filled by someone else who was waiting on that role to open up. I just got chills. So unless I take my intuitive leap of faith, my role's not open for someone else to then step into, and because that person stepped into my role, now someone else can step into their role. So it's all connected. And I think the mistake a lot of people make with trying to listen to their intuition is as if it's just affecting them. It's not about you. It's about you playing your role in the cosmic game of us all being connected. And that is the universe tapping you on the shoulder going, hey, Matt, you're part of a bigger game here. You got to get on the field, buddy. And then when you do it, all of these things start opening up. So I think the practice is to, as a leader, not always be caught in the action, the doing, the logic, what's the strategy, what looks like the best next step, and to create, here's a Lululemon term for you, Matt, what we would call a stand and watch. You're just going to stand and watch. Hold still. You stand and watch what's happening. And I remember every floor shift as a manager, you were required to do a stand and watch where you stopped moving around the store and you just stood still and you watched the next guest that came in through your store. You watched them go through their entire journey and you just watched, no commentary. And then you could, from there, you had enough data to make some adjustments with like, here's what I noticed. No one said hello to them when they came in. The experience was really great in the fitting room, but no one cleared their clothes out. No one went with them to the register. I felt like we made them wait at the register, unnecessary amount of time. And you don't know that if you've just head down, keep moving, keep driving for results. So that application of intuition requires silence, stillness, press pause on all the doing. And just watch, what else do I need to know right now? And you might get some things that's like juxtaposes what the next logical step looked like. The next logical step for Jen was like, keep moving up that Tesla ladder. Keep getting that stock equity, baby, you know? But there was like I got to do this. And I had the same thing. I'm like, logically, I should stay at Lululemon. Intuitively, it's time. I'm going to go. Yes. And then when you do that, the universe opens doors.
Yes. Well, this so cool because, you know, I'll end this here in a minute because I've taken way too much of your time, but I hope that everyone listening is thinking back to those moments, right, where we've had these decision points, this little whisper or feeling, and you jumped and you did it, and you're at that place because of that. And as you both are talking, I'm thinking back through my career of little things that have happened that I've listened to, even to the point of jumping off and starting my own business, which was unbelievably scary, but has led me to where I'm at today. And it was because of listening to those things that are important. So I encourage everyone to, if you have that little feeling or that little whisper, that even to have a conversation with someone on your team to get to know them.
Yeah.
If you have this little inkling to go, and there's a process thing that like it doesn't have to be these big like, oh, everybody leave your company and go work for James Wedmore and team, but like that's not the point of this. But it's pay attention, and I think the quiet is the critical piece, right? We move so fast. I say this all the time of like, just find time to be quiet.
Yeah.
Slow down. It's slowing down to speed up, and that's when those amazing messages just kind of show up. And that's intuition. That's the gut. That's trusting yourself. It's trust in the universe or God or whatever you happen to believe in, like that there's a kind of greater and grander purpose out there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I love that. Okay. I could stay on for hours, but we're going to set, I swear, I say this every time, we're going to set a round two, maybe talk hiring, go deeper into the intuition stuff.
That's our favorite. Hiring, onboarding.
Fred and I are the 1-2 punch of hiring.
So good. Yeah. Bing, bang, boom. So last thing for you both is, where can the listeners find you, connect with you, and learn more about intuition or anything else that you both have going on?
I'm easy. You can find me talking with my boyfriend, James, on the Mind Your Business podcast. I think if you really loved this episode, there's 2 episodes that came to mind. I think it's episode 597 is where we talked to my volleyball coach, Coach Kane.
Yep.
And that's a rad just episode in team leadership. I just find him fascinating. I've wanted to interview him since I was a teenager. So I just loved that interview. And then we have another one that's 577 that's all about unlocking your intuitive superpowers. I have a course right now that I'm running it right now. So I only do one cohort at a time, but the wait list is open, and it's at jameswedmore.com/intuition, which Matt, I'll send you the link so you can put it in the show notes. But if anybody's interested in that, and of course you can DM me on the Instagrams. I'll give Matt my Instagram handle. We love a DM.
Who doesn't
Jen,
love a
how do they
DM?
find you?
You can also find me on Instagram. I'll give him my handle for the show notes. And then I've been really into LinkedIn lately. So if you'd like to send me any message, I love having conversations about leadership and just giving advice on growing your corporate career and things like that. I've got lots and lots and lots of experience and advice to give. So I am on there as Jennifer Peterson, and then in brackets, my former last name, Randone. So feel free to send me a message or connect with me there, and we can chat some more.
Brilliant. So we will link up everything in the show notes. Make sure you can connect with these lovely and powerful women. And Jenni, thank you so much for being on the podcast. So fun, and can't wait for round 2.
Oh, yeah.
So fun.
Thank you for joining us today on the Matt Phillips Podcast. If you are like us, we know that you are here to do great things, to become the sales leader that makes things happen and drives big time sales results. We know you have that big vision, and we are here to help get you where you want to go. We're here to help you develop that unstoppable, rock solid leadership skill set and help you train to master the one true differentiator: mental toughness. We would love to be part of your journey. So if you are ready, head over to mattphillipscoaching.com and check out the ways that we can help. As always, please share this episode and make sure you subscribe by clicking the button below. Thank you again. And now, go crush the day.